her Section 8. My mother's here, so I'll be referring to her every now and then because a whole lot of my strength came from her.
Amen.
My mother got Section 8. We moved to an area where we were living, we now had a better place to live. Again, we were the first African-American family in the community that I moved in Minnesota. I experienced some things around that, being the only African-American child in the first grade. Name calling, those were other things that created some emptiness inside of me. I began to feel like I wasn't okay being the person that I was. Again, I usually elaborate on that just a little bit more, but this presentation has to be done in a little bit shorter form, and I want to make sure that I get to the part where Jesus changed me.
Come on now.
I want to make sure that I get to share with you guys how it didn't happen for me the way most of us think it happens. Matter of fact, I'm going to share with you many times that I ran in the other directions because of things that I felt when I was in the environment. I didn't feel like I deserved to get what all the church people was getting. Because I felt that I was less than, because I would be sitting in church service thinking about it, hurrying up and being over because I wanted to smoke a cigarette.
Uh-huh.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Amen, amen.
Thank God that he took time
All right now. Make it clear.
to connect with me
Amen.
in another way.
Yes.
Next slide. At a very young age, dealing with some of the stuff that I was dealing with, I began to run. Around the ages of 12 and 13, I began to run. With this, again, like I said, feeling like I didn't fit in. We lived out in the suburbs. I would run to the north side. I felt comfortable. I'm about 11, 12 years old at this time, so I began skipping school. And I'm actually going to need some water. My mouth is getting really dry. Thank you.
No.
I began to run. And during this time that I began to run, I was skipping school and I would run to an environment that I felt like I was accepted. Now you got a picture, you got an 11, 12-year-old little girl who's running in an environment during school hours. You got to think, who is she around?
Yes.
I mean, I'm around a whole lot of other people not in school. Whether they're just not going to school or whether they're adults that just like hanging with younger girls. So with that, I exposed myself or put myself in an environment for a lot of unhealthy things to take place.
Yes.
I remember my mom would come looking for me and she'd do that whole get your butt back home. And then I'd run again. And it just got to the place where I continued to run. My mom ended up one year, as I was out in the community running around at the very young age, 11 and 12, you got to think, if I'm able to leave and be gone for a couple days at a time, I'm staying somewhere.
That's right.
How come nobody's asking, where's your mother? Does your mom know where you're at? Well, I want to share with you, church, that I'm staying in a lot of unhealthy environments.
Yes.
And these apartments are rented by adults. So if I may reach you guys and let you know that I'm experiencing a whole lot of things that's creating a bigger emptiness inside of me. Mm-hmm. And if I can say it in the best way possible, I know we got young ears in the rooms, but I was being taken advantage of.
Mm-hmm.
And in that, I internalized that, and I already had this emptiness inside of me. This emptiness, these things that was happening to me, it was real easy to look at it and blame myself because nobody was making me do anything. So in my little young mind, I'm thinking if they're not making me do it, it must be my fault. And emptiness being created inside of me that I'm trying to fulfill with all these other things that are leading to empty places. During that time that I was out in the community, lost, I eventually met a guy. And this guy was around my age. I was around 14 years old. He was my real boyfriend because he showed a little bit of care. I could go and meet his family, meet his friends. It was a little bit different than what was happening to me out in that community. So I met this guy at a very young age. And again, still running the streets out in the community. I began to hang at his mother's house. You can think about that. A 14-year-old girl can go home with a guy, even though that's my boyfriend, and I can just stay there. Not healthy. So you just gotta know, still a little distortion thing, but It felt better than what I was in. I was accepted by a family. Not that my family never accepted me, but some of the stuff that I was experiencing was easier to stay away than to come back and have to explain what I'm living and how I'm living.
Yes.
Well, this man ended up being my abuser. So the person that I felt now was someone that cared about me at my very young age. You got to think 14, 15, very young age. And so love looked like love. Again, what a young girl who has a lot of emptiness inside of her perceives as love.
Yes.
Right.
Being abused in that relationship, things got unhealthy and bad quick. There's so much more I would like to share about that, but I want to make sure I don't miss the opportunity to get to where I'm headed. But knowing that there's a whole lot of things happening with the domestic violence, I would end up hospitalized. My family would see me. My family would be furious. They want me to call the police. They want to do this. It got to the point where police would show up and I wouldn't even say who did it. I was terrified of this man. But I was in love with this man. Next slide. So now, I'm out here. I'm in this relationship, which is very abusive. I'm now the mother of 4 kids. I'm living in a very unhealthy environment. I'm saying to myself, I want to take care of these kids. I kept them their mind, and when you're dealing with a relationship that's real hurtful for like that, having your child there, understanding that I didn't even know how to take care of myself. But I'm trying. So let me just give you a picture, you guys, of what this looked like. I had a newborn that sat in a thing that I carried on my chest. That was Brittany. I had a set of 1-year-old twins in a stroller. And I had a 2-year-old that held on to the side of my pants leg like this, trying my best to raise them. I was full of shame. I could hear it walking around, people looking at me. That girl, look at that, all her kids. Hey, full of shame. All I know is what I was feeling. All I know is I needed something different. I would frequently feel like I don't even want to go on anymore. I'm sitting here looking at these kids that I can't provide for. And once I started using this drug, everything got bad quick.
Wow. Yes.
All those things that come along with an addiction, all the food stamps gone. So now what? Already filled with shame, looking at your children, knowing you cannot provide, and you just had $200 worth of food stamps and they're gone, and they're hungry. Now the reason I'm sharing to you guys this in this kind of way, because I'm going to move to the place where my life was saved. I want to make sure you know that's coming. But the reason that I choose to share all of this, be completely transparent, I need you to know the truth, because there's some people out here in the world that's hurting.
Come on.
And then the kids are here. We work too hard. I don't want, okay, well, he can stay a night. So I started making sacrifices that ultimately leaded me back to a very unhealthy place and exposing myself to some of those same things so I'd be back into my addiction. So this went on for several years. Again, there's so much more I would like to share in that, but I want to make sure I get to the part that is really important here. Eventually, I made a decision. My mom had already moved here to Oregon, and my mom had always told me, Melanie, you need to leave. That man is going to kill you, or you're going to lose your kids forever. And some of that had started to happen there in Minnesota. DHS services would get involved. They'd come into my house and they would look in the fridge and, kind of those things to see, can she provide for her children? And it wasn't hard for them to tell that, no, I needed help. So my kids would be removed from the home, and then that's when I would get into a program. They'd reunite me with my kids, and then the same thing would happen again several months later. So I want to make sure I say that, because there were several attempts to try to get clean before I actually reached that place. So a decision was made to leave. My mom told me, help me get here to Oregon. I got here to Oregon. DHS services was still involved and connected with my children. And so I'm thinking my life is going to get on track now, because now I left the problem behind. It was me. I needed some healing. So hoping that my life would change when I got here to Portland, Oregon. And in the beginning, it was going well. My mom helped with my children. I was in a program. Things were going well. While in the streets, on drugs. I had never been on crack in this kind of way. I'm out in the streets. All those things that come along with this type of addiction begin to happen. The crime, the criminal, prostitution. All those things continuing to create this emptiness inside of me. Feeling like my life isn't even worth living. My life isn't even worth saving. Not to mention, there was nobody else to blame. I did this. My kids got taken away from me this time. There was no one to point my finger at.
Yes,
When I
Lord.
was in jail, after going through those few months of that stress and that overwhelming, just really wanting to give up, I reached a place, and I would cry out. I would cry out, not knowing if I would be answered, but I had known enough to know to call out on God's name.
Amen.
It was taking a while to get into a program. The person's supposed to come talk to you and try to help you get into a program. So I started calling programs collect. It's going to turn out by the end, but I am 100% that my ears are open and my answer is yes. When I got here, again, I didn't really feel like I fit in the church, but there was a few people that would just wrap their arms around me and just tell me, it's okay. I felt like, again, so when you're coming in and you're coming into the church, my mind was on the religious side of church. Again, I know, you hear a lot of things, and I've learned a lot since then. Shared with you during all this stuff that I was experiencing and going through. Again, I knew that I was being guided, and I knew that God was putting people in my life, and I was beginning to learn more and more and more. I knew that I knew that there was a plan in place for my life the whole time.